ES Audio.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Dallaglio. Welcome to the Rugby Podcast in association with Fuller's London Pride and the Evening Standard. This time we're live from one of the most famous pubs in the world. It is, of course, the Cabbage Patch at Twickenham. We have, of course, just been watching the second test between Australia and England in Brisbane, and we're here to discuss with me some amazing guests. First up, a man who had a trial for Liverpool Football Club. All rugby players put that in their CV, yeah. I had a trial for Liverpool Football Club. We'll find out if that's true or not. He also nearly went into rugby league with Liverpool St Helens. Would have been far better looking if he hadn't. And eventually he played 51 times for England and actually captained England, probably more than I did, in fairness to me. He also featured on an episode of Friends. I didn't know about that, Kyran. It is, of course, Kyran Bracken, MBE.
That's the first introduction where they don't highlight the fact that I won Dancing and Ice. I get more of a round of applause for winning Dancing. There you go, exactly. Yeah, they know me from rugby.
Yeah, I should have known that. I've seen your dance moves. Now, keeping things balanced and representing England's Antipodean opponents, a man who was born and raised in Perth, made his international debut for the Wallabies. I think we all watched it against England at Twickenham last November. He now plays for the Irish, not that Irish team, London Irish, and has done for the last 8 years. Give a huge welcome to Ollie Hoskins, who, by the way, is already back in pre-season training for next season, so we can discuss Irish and all things training very, very shortly. Last, but by no means least, a true legend of the women's game, a Rugby World Cup winner with England. I think, Claire, you played 43 times for England, if Wikipedia's correct. Funnily enough, I don't tend to Google myself anymore or anyone else on there, but you played in all three front row positions. You played for Wasps as your only club. Please give a huge, warm welcome to Claire Purdy. Claire, all well with you? Excellent. Well, listen, we are going to take a look back later on in the show at the amazing Premiership season, of course, the incredible final, and the wonderful celebrations of Freddie Burns by keeping the cup for the next 2 or 3 days. But before we do that, let's switch to all matters international rugby, and let's get straight into it and talk about England. Kyran, it's a great result, wasn't it, for England?
We're going to win the next World Cup. What do you reckon? I'm quite with that. It's out there now. And do you know what? I came in here with a lot of trepidation. I thought, can't we just talk about the Ireland win against New Zealand? And then I thought, no, we're not going to win this. Lost faith in the team, and I think a lot of the supporters have. So we get here with a lot of trepidation. A couple of Aussies in there, and you're thinking, can you imagine losing the Aussies with the likes of you around, right? You were quite confident, weren't you? And from the get-go, first 20 minutes, scrum, we had them on toast. And there were a couple of moments in that game where I thought we were going to crumble, and we didn't. And that, for me, is what I've been hoping for a long time. Last time we played like that, maybe England, South Africa in the autumn. Terrible Six Nations. Barbar's awful. Last game awful. I now think that we will win the series 2-1.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Last week, the Southern Hemisphere clean sweep. New Zealand battered Ireland, even though the scoreline was probably a bit flattering. England ultimately well beaten. I guess Wales, it's always quite tough for an Englishman to know who to support when Wales play South Africa, but you've got to say that we were all supporting Wales, and that was taken away from them. And then Scotland. Amazing how a week can make such a difference. Oh, we brought you on. You're an Aussie playing your rugby here in England, so you can give us a pretty balanced view. How did you see Australia's performance in that second test?
I think it was all set up kind of from the first 10 minutes of the game, especially in international footy. Trying to come back from a 17-point deficit is almost impossible. I thought the breakdown for England in the first 10 minutes was lethal. They were getting 1-2 second ball off the deck. Australia couldn't get really any momentum in the game, and they capitalised on their opportunities. And then Australia slowly sort of clawed their way back into the game, and I thought they did pretty well in the fact that they probably got into England's 22 twice, scored 2 tries. The momentum sort of built back in their way, and as Kyran said, England did an amazing job of kind of absorbing momentum when it swung back against them, and it showed a good amount of resilience to kind of go back to their processes of the maul, making sure they're winning collisions and getting some good penalties and kicking the scoreboard ticking over. So I think England will take a lot from that. Considering that first 10 minutes, they were all over Australia. That kind of.
Have you ever heard an Aussie prop so balanced and speak so beautifully? What he meant to say was Australia really struggled in the front row, and they need to bring in some serious replacements from the UK. Exactly. Noted.
There was a lot of beef before the game, wasn't there, with Genge and Thor and who was going to come on top. But Thor, he struggled, didn't he, for the first 3 or 4 scrums?
I mean, he hasn't played for a while, so it's a bit of a...
Here we go. Excuses. There we go.
I've played against Genge many a time. He's a very good player, and Taniela himself is one of the most freakish athletes I've ever seen. But I think the way both of them scrum, Genge tends to be very aggressive, take an angle, come in quite hard, and Taniela also likes to take the gap and trying to go at the hooker quite a bit. So I think they both are kind of as bad as each other, I thought.
I mean, we've got 2 incredible international front rows here. Do you guys still have a little bit of a chat to each other, opponent to opponent, just before, whilst you're locking horns, or are you blowing so hard that you've got no opportunity?
Most of the time I'm blowing so hard that I can't be bothered talking, but...
there are times though where you do have to
I don't want to shoot myself in the foot here, but it's easy when you're a bit of a front runner. If things are going well, it's easier to talk a bit of crap to your opposition. But I think Genge did a good job, and at the same time, I think Will Stewart did a very nice job of staying nice and square and keeping Angus Bell out, which allows Genge to have that opportunity. If Will Stewart's getting turned in and allowing the loose head of Australia to come in and put pressure on him, that also pushes Genge out. So I think Will Stewart did a good job.
Completely lost me.
You lost the whole room. No idea.
I mean, can I just say,
I'm getting well into my dark arts here.
I used to have a very good view of all that.
Yeah.
I just used to work out if it was all going wrong as a flanker, just bore in on the opposition prop and help your flanker out. Claire, you've actually won a World Cup. Give us an assessment of where you think the England men's team are at. We know about the Red Roses; they're flying at the moment. They can't even find a team that are going to challenge them at the minute. But what about the men's team? What was your assessment?
I think, obviously watching from last week and having seen all the press release and obviously listened to Eddie Jones again and all the fans, we're talking about consistency and we're talking about the guys coming out with intent, and that's exactly what they did today. But again, you saw it in the second half, we started to peter off a little bit. Now, whether that's just a case of we're getting tired and we're switching off, but in terms of where we are, we've got 18 months out, we've got another 6 nations. It's when do we start putting in the same players in together, so we've got the partnerships building, and I think that's what we want to understand from Eddie is where are we going with it now, because we keep hearing the same messaging. I mean, we've got young players coming through and they're shown today, we've got debuts going on and they're doing a job. So I think it's an exciting time, but we just want to see that building up a little bit better.
Kyran, we are less than 15 games, I think, to go till the World Cup. We've got obviously 4 autumns, one more test in Australia, 4 autumns, 6 nations, what's that, 5 games and some warm-up matches. So not a huge amount of time. I mean, obviously, look, we're celebrating a great England result, and as you say, if they go on and win the series, but it still did. I mean, up front, we know we got a very good pack, but it wasn't like we had to do an awful lot to win that game other than play really well up front.
No, you're right. I mean, I think that the pack sort of are the fundamentals always. If you can have dominate up front, then you've got a chance of winning the game, which they did today. I think what people are struggling with is the sort of various selections. And one week it's this is my best ever team, and suddenly you get rid of people in them. But it worked today. I thought Jack played very well at scrum half. Van Portfleet. I mean, I was surprised he was in there ahead of Danny. And so he came in, and I think the pack were going forward, and you'll know more. And Billy Vanapola had another cracking game. Great to see him back. And when you've got a bit of power at the base, okay, and then you're dominating up front, it makes it a lot easier. For the first time, actually, I actually now almost kind of nearly believe in the Smith and Farrell axis at the moment. It's taken this long to get there. The last game wasn't so good. Could they be in the same team? I've heard Will Greenwood said they can't be in the same team. It's either or. It has to be. And I think you did an article last week.
They definitely can be in the same team then, if Will said that.
Yeah. So this week was really interesting. Last week, I kind of was so frustrated because Smith has been so good dominating. You know, he's kicking for goal, he's kicking for touch, he's making decisions, he's putting players into space, and then suddenly last week he was a shadow of himself. Farrell was in there making the decisions, kicking goals. He was controlling everything, and I was like, it's either or, it can't work. And then this week it's like, right, you got one more chance. And actually, first 6 or 7 passes went to Smith. He put a few people away, Genge, I think. And actually it started to look a bit better. And I might be sold on it, but I do think they're still missing somebody in the centre who can get us right over the gain line. If you're playing against New Zealand, South Africa, that's what you need. Did we have that today? Yeah, his name is, but we can't rely on him. He's going to play 1 out of 8 games. But what I saw today was encouraging, was certainly encouraging. And I think Australia, let's be fair, in World Rugby aren't where they should be, and they are not a powerhouse at the moment. The last game we should have won, today we won. I'm sure we'll win next week, but it's not necessarily a reflection of how well we're doing. That's my opinion.
Kyran, I just want to interrogate you a bit more on that scrum-half thing, because you obviously went toe-to-toe with Matt Dawson. I mean, Austin Healy sort of came in and out of the equation, but not really very much, did he? I mean, you ended up with 51 caps. Matt Dawson, I can't remember, probably a few more.
One or two more.
I mean, you were clearly the most important member of the World Cup squad. But I mean, as a scrum half, you know, if you play well, you stay in the team. Yeah. Seemingly, if the team plays badly, they often axe the scrum half first.
You're right. Well, the one thing to say is I am definitely a better dancer than Matt Dawson, all right? So I won dancing on ice and he came third or whatever. So that's it. But crucial positions.
I mean, where does Harry, but how does Harry Randall feel? I mean, he's like he's brought in, axed,
strange.
Ben Spencer. I mean, Eddie Jones got the selection of scrum half wrong in the World Cup in Japan. He had to fly out a third choice scrum half. Yeah. And we've been chopping and changing. Ben Young's 100 and whatever many caps. I mean, who should be playing scrum half? Because clearly Eddie Jones doesn't really know, does he?
Well, he's changed so much. I think it's really hard for Harry Randall because he started the Six Nations and we were like a bit of a surprise selection. We were like, right, he's in there, Ben Young's on the bench. Played 4 games, and then for the crucial one, he dropped him for the last game. And I was just like, I mean, this guy's confidence must be shot. So then after that, I thought, well, I think he captained the bar. He was in the bars. He captained the England team, and then I thought, all right, so what's going to happen? And then suddenly, Danny Care's in. I thought, well, that's a bit harsh. And then Jack's gone in on the bench, and Harry's out of it completely. Yeah. So Harry's there training in Australia, thinking I've gone from first choice to third choice. I actually think Rafi Quirk is one of the best 9s that England has seen for many years. He just needs to stay fit.
Are you coaching him by any chance?
No, not at all. Not yet. But I thought Jack did really well today. I was surprised with that selection. It was a very, very big call from Eddie Jones to do that. He came on at the end of the last game, scored a nice try, did okay, but there's something he's seen in training. And I think that there's going to be a battle between Jack and Rafi, and then you're going to see Danny Care and and Ben Youngs and all those fighting maybe for third place.
Ollie, should we just be? I mean, I'm a bit old school. If you think you're the best player, you want to play every single game, you want to start. This finisher stuff, it doesn't work on me. I want to be a starter. No one wants to be a finisher. I mean, do the modern players just accept the rotation, even at international level, is part and parcel of it now?
I mean, accept is a maybe. In honesty, when you're in a professional environment, as you guys would know, we're hyper competitive people, and you view yourself if you're the better in your position, you want to be starting. The whole idea of specialist finishers and stuff, for me as well, I kind of share your view. It's a bit of a cop-out from coaches, I feel like. Sorry, Declan. But no, it is also, especially, maybe not so much in the international season, but with the club season, there has to be some element of rotation because you're playing so many different competitions, playing so many games, that there needs to be an aspect of keeping players fresh and having a certain team for bigger games and maybe for Premiership Cup games.
Can the modern front row player play a whole match? Because it just seems, you've seen what South Africa do with the bomb squad come on. It kind of feels like when we played, earlier on in my
Betamax video days, remember that?
Exactly. In the real early days, there were no replacements whatsoever. And the great thing after 75 minutes is, Victor Pugu, he'll be tired, and there'll be lots of space.
After 5 minutes,
After 5 minutes, actually. So I stand corrected. So the thing is, at the moment with the game, I kind of feel when these, the whole front row come on, and I know it brings the power in, and they say, well, we need to keep it safe. But players now are training to play 50 minutes, not the whole match. What's your opinion of that?
I think it's the mentality, though, of the player. Like, if you know that you're only going to play 50 minutes, do you then play within yourself? It's okay, I've got another 10 minutes, I'm going to keep going. Yeah. Or are you playing to bust and you're playing for that full 50 minutes. And I think that's where you have to be really careful with how you train and how that player takes it in board. Like, okay, I'm your 50-minute player, here we go, or I'm coming on for that last half to give everything. So I think it's, for me, like for my end of my career, I was the 80-minute prop because we had no subs. So I was crawling off and I was ready. I was like, where's my 50 minutes? So it's, I think.
But Tupou's he's not capable of playing a whole match, is he? No chance. There's some players like that. You look like you're capable.
I've done it a couple of times. It's tough, but I mean, I think that almost shot England in the foot a bit last week when you see Will Stewart playing 75 plus minutes and in a crucial scrum in the game. England give away a pretty soft scrum penalty, but obviously that's on their pack. But at the same time, I think Eddie needs to manage his players a bit better. Joe Hayes is a good player. He's a great scrummager. I wasn't sure why in the first test Will Stewart's playing 75 plus minutes when you have a perfectly capable tight end who's proven himself with Leicester, won a Premiership on the bench.
Can we just get his opinion on Eddie Jones? Because, an Australian's opinion on Eddie Jones.
Please do.
Sorry,
it's not
in the script.
No. You're very welcome to.
What do you guys make of him?
I've never personally been coached by Eddie, so this is just me from hearing from inside source of people who've been in camp with him. I know he demands a lot, and it's an intense environment, and boys are getting flogged. Everyone who's come back from England camp, who's been Irish and gone recently to England camp, and I've spoken to them, they've just come back and been like, oh my God, we've just been absolutely beasted. So I think it's a very intense environment, and I'm not sure recovery and making sure players are fresh and stuff are at the forefront of their mind. I think it's more about building sort of a mental resilience more than anything.
Coaches are, Eddie Jones tactically is a very astute coach. The last World Cup showed that with what he did against Australia and New Zealand. In terms of managing players, I would question his ability to manage them in the right way. I think he goes through an enormous number of players because he's England coach. He's not that worried about that. If you coached a club side like that, you'd be out of a job straight away. Yeah. You can't just have a high turnover of players. And you have to create a pathway where you challenge your players, which I think he does quite clearly, but you also have to allow them to challenge you back. And I don't believe, maybe with Courtney Laws, maybe Owen Farrell, don't think there's enough people that challenge him. The last time I played, and Ollie and any of us, the coach is not the guy that gets his head kicked in on a Saturday at 3 o'clock. It's you're the guy out there. So, there are certain things that you need to push back on and go, if you want to get the best out of us, this is how you do it. It's not about opening a laptop and reading about what's going on scientifically all the time.
I think a good example was that in the World Cup in 2003. I think you said to Clive, why are we training at 10 in the morning when our matches are at 8? And he's like, oh yeah, you might
best
be right
prepared
there.
team in the World Cup. We just about scraped through against Wales. Obviously never in doubt, was it really? And we had a video nasty, didn't we, on the Monday morning, and we went through it. And then Clive, gave us an opportunity, and I put my hand up and said, let's ask a question. Why are we training at 95 degrees in Brisbane Heat at 3 when the games kick off at 9 o'clock? He went, yeah, that's a very good point, actually. But listen, we want questions from you guys on the floor. Let's just focus on the positives, because there were positives. Claire, the performances of Van Poortvliet, Guy Porter, Tommy Freeman. What do we reckon about that? Because making your England debut, as you've done, as we've all done internationally, is a very special time. To be part of a winning side, is only a good thing, right?
Absolutely, it will build their confidence, and also what an opportunity to go out and play. Your debut is always massive. I mean, I'm sure they've got family and friends over there as well, but it's for the England squad as well. It just shows that we have got player pathway coming through, and we've got the talent that's there. So it's just building on those opportunities for them. So hopefully we'll see them out in the third test.
We're going to have a couple of questions from the floor, and we're going to go there. Before we do, I want to say, Ollie, first of all for you, Australia, they've had a lot of changes to deal with. Obviously no Quade Cooper. They've had to make changes throughout that first test and again in the second test. Where do they go from here? I mean, is it a question of seeing who's fit and available and seeing what side they can get out?
Yeah, I mean, even today, I think they had 4 or 5 injuries too. So, I mean, Dave Rennie and the coaching staff have got a bit of a tight couple of days coming around to try and see who's available. And I think this game, although it didn't go their way, it kind of gave a blueprint to them of where they need to be better. Up front, scrum, maul, the contact areas, and the breakdown are kind of where the game was lost. especially breakdown and maul. I thought scrums are 50-50. Some decisions went their way, some didn't. The maul, I think there's a couple in the second half where they were just getting walked back 30 metres, giving them easy possession, easy momentum. So I think up front, as a pack, they're probably going to have a good look at themselves and around the physicality and the breakdown and the maul, and that's kind of the area that they need to sort of focus on for the third test. So I think the back line and their attack shape and that sort of stuff, when they got the momentum, they played really good footy in England. It was hard for England to deal with them, but they just didn't get enough front foot ball to really threaten them for any long period of time.
Brilliant. We're going to take a couple of questions from the floor. Would you like to announce your name and what your question is, please?
Hi, Lawrence. My name is Will. Big Harlequins and obviously England fan. It's all right, Ollie. It's all right. You know, Irish had a good game. You guys are going to do much better next season. My question is regarding the sort of fringe players on the England camp right now. Like, as you said, we've only got 15 games till the World Cup. Personally, and maybe I'm biased for saying this, but I feel like players like Lewis Liner, Caden Murley at Quins, you know, they really are kind of on the fringe, and I really feel they could do something. Obviously, I'm sure there's a bunch of other players as well. I mean, do you feel in the next 18 months, are there any players that you think could break out, could really actually stamp themselves forward, a bit like how Kyran did before 2003, like, you know, really just kind of get it through, you know?
You had about 40 caps before 2003.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting.
Lewis Liner seems to me one of those players just missed out. Is he injured though? I think didn't they say before he came out he was injured and therefore not able to be selected?
Well, I mean, look, Eddie Jones's selection is erratic at best, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, he's not consistent at all. They've won today, so he'll probably say to people like me and all the rest of the media, you know, go and do one. I'm the guy that picks the team, and they've won. Do you change your winning team now? Does he stick with that selection, or does he go back? You know, I mean, I look at someone like Joe Marchant, and I've watched a lot of Premiership rugby. Yeah. In fact, I've watched every minute of Premiership rugby this season. He's had a brilliant season. You know, they had one poor game last week, and he gets dropped from the team and the squad.
And he didn't play bad.
And now he's thinking, do I get myself back in? So it's kind of that kind of weird stuff going on in selection that really worries me, because eventually that sort of gets through to the players. You know, what confidence do they have? And do England stick now with a winning side,
well,
a winning combination?
That's the interesting thing. I don't think Eddie Jones is that sort of person to keep sticking with what he's got. And I think when you're going into a World Cup, and you know better, is consistency and selection is really important, especially in the key positions, 9, 10, 12, hooker, let's say. So I think at the moment, you know, England, that awkward position whereby a few players have come in, done quite well. What does he do? I think he's going to stick with the same team, I reckon, for the last game, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Maybe mess around with the bench. Maybe Joe Marchant might come on, I don't know. But I think from after this tour, going up to the World Cup, he's got to be sure who his starting 15 is for the final. And you keep with that, even if they have a bad game. And unfortunately, the selection doesn't allow for that from what I've seen. Yeah.
Good question. Slightly one-eyed, but good question.
Yeah.
Should we have one more at the back there, two at the back?
Oh, we've got an Aussie there.
Hamish, Ollie's mate, he's obviously put a little question in there.
Well, first of all, thank you to London Pride for the sponsorship, and it's great to see women's
on brand, like it.
representation
Good lad.
here, Claire. It's a fantastic progression for the sport. Now, there's a lot of Brits who move and have a great holiday in Australia, and there's a lot of Australians who come here to the motherland, English Britannia. So, now, Ollie, you were born in Australia, but your parents are English, and you supported England in 2003 World Cup.
Why do I bring my mates here? Letting all the cuss on me. Brainwashed from my father. Brainwashed.
The
There is
question,
photo evidence going around of me in a knight's outfit.
You're regretting bringing your mate along, aren't you?
There is a question in there somewhere, Hamish.
I was hoping
That
so.
very Scottish name.
So Ollie,
Send me up
you
here.
played for Australia, but you live and love England. How does that work with your heart, splitting that in half?
Jesus wept, Hammer. Come on. He's put me right on the spot here. Look, I was brainwashed when I was younger from my father. In 2003, I was actually cheering for Johnny Wilkinson when he kicked that drop goal over. I know, it's tough. But then I saw the error of my ways. I played age grade rugby through Australia, and I've supported them ever since, as you know, and I was very happy to make my debut last year. So I'm a Wallaby through and through.
And so we know you're earning 3 times as much as you would be if you were in Australia. So that might have one reason why you enjoy being it. Will you take that well-earned and very hard-earned money back to Australia and live in Australia, or will you stay here?
No, I'll stay over here. I've met my wife over here. We've set our life up. I've got a British passport. All my family's over here. So I'll be staying in Britain post-rugby, but my rugby allegiances are very much Australia.
Okay, we've got a few more questions. I want people to interrogate us about Eddie Jones a little bit more, maybe about some of the selections, some of the team. Where do we think England are at? We've won 1 game, by the way, but we finished on a losing Six Nations for the last 2 tournaments. I mean, does one result change everything, or is there still a bit of concern out there?
I have a question, but it's not about Eddie Jones.
Okay. Far away.
Sorry. First of all, Lawrence, love you. My dad loves you too. You're an absolute legend.
See, I plant people in the audience as well.
Your one's actually nice to you, though, unlike mine.
Well, all of you, obviously. England women are playing in the World Cup later this year. What are their chances? Are they going to win?
Okay, well, I think there's only one person we can direct that question to.
Thank you.
And that's Kyran. Claire?
I got it. Actually, I caught up with Sarah Hunter this week, and similar to pre-season, so they're in their first week of England training. And their confidence, as you can imagine, from the games that we played through Six Nations, France being the combination of them going out there and winning the Six Nations, it's really high. And there is, in my mind, there's no doubt that we will go out there and take the World Cup again, so and bring it home. But we've got to look at the teams that in their pool. So obviously they've got France in theirs. They've also got South Africa and Fiji, which we wouldn't know much about. And then New Zealand in their pool, Pool A. They've got New Zealand, Australia, and Wales and Ireland, I think it is. So the route through, and obviously this year we got quarterfinals as well, which we haven't had before. So it's not going to be easy, and you wouldn't expect that. But I'm 100% behind them that they'll go out there and bring it home, which I'm very excited.
Let's hope so.
It's great. It was great to watch some of the Six Nations games with crowds. Yeah. I mean, it was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, the atmosphere was amazing, and they deserve that.
Yeah. I think we're going to have one more question before I put our panel on the spot and tell us who's going to win this series down in Sydney next week. So, young lady.
My name's Una. I'm going to stand up for Eddie a little bit here. Do you not think that, Van Portfree had a great game today, but do you not think that having Danny on the bench, coming on, bringing that speed and experience in the later kind of 20-30 minutes was a really good choice, potentially, when Australia were flagging and you needed the speed and the zip?
I agree with that. I think on reflection, it looked like the right choice to have Danny come on and Jack to start a game and have all that pressure. Although when you look at last week and maybe the last 4 years at Danny's, the way he's played, he deserves to have started. I think he's that sort of player. But I think it's been a good thing Jack's come in. I think he's going to keep his place. It is nice to have Danny to come on and sort of change the game. You are right. They are slightly different players, and I thought Jack played really well. But what could have happened today is Jack could have gone out there, felt all the pressure, not played well, could have lost the game. And you think, why have we done it? But it's turned out well, and I hope he keeps his place. But I do think it's hard on Danny.
And the Vunipola brothers as well,
yeah.
who clearly, they got picked by Eddie when they probably both didn't, particularly Billy, but both of them probably didn't deserve to be picked. And their performances were below par. He then drops them after the World Cup and says, I'm not sure they've got the appetite. We've all been dropped at, certainly we've been dropped at international level.
Some more than others. Well, you didn't get many.
Briefly. But, you go away, you question your game, you come back, you improve, and you get picked again. It's taken Eddie Jones a long time to pick the Vunipola brothers again, maybe because of Saracens. And Danny Kerr had one poor game against Japan. He did a one-to-one review with Eddie Jones. He criticised him directly, and he never got picked again. So... Yeah. I agree with you. I like Eddie Jones, and if he was here, we'd say it to his face. He just doesn't trust players enough. He loses faith in players. He doesn't trust people, and I think if you want to build a successful England side, international side, any side, you've got to trust your players. You can't just chop and change your players. If Marcus Smith misses touch, don't hoik him off the field. Let him carry on. If a good player has a bad game, you've got to pick him again and say, I trust you because I know you're going to come good. And that's my only issue, is I'm not sure he trusts people enough. And you've got to be consistent with the message that you deliver them. And I think he's always yearning to improve the team in a way that every good coach is, before they've actually learnt what he's told them already. The attacking game today, we didn't have to use our attacking game because our forwards ultimately beat Australia up front. Yeah. And Van Poortvliet, playing at Leicester, is very used to that, and I thought he played brilliantly, kicked well, had some great little breaks around the fringes. But when we've actually got to extend ourselves a little bit and play some attacking rugby, still question whether we've got the shape, structure and ability to do that, particularly in a side that keeps changing. Marcus Smith, that was his 11th start for England today. He's played with 4 different scrum halves and he's played with 8 different centre combinations. Now, possibly that's just the modern game and old gits like me should just shut up and get on with it. But I think you need consistency in your selection to create a winning culture and a winning team. And there we go. But right, we're going to put them on the... We're going to put, hopefully Courtney Laws might tell him that, but we're going to put our guests on the spot. Kieran's already said it. He thinks England have now wrestled the momentum back. Yeah. And you think maybe not too many changes, England will go on and win the series.
I think they won't make too many changes, and I honestly think it'll be a battering the next match. I honestly think they went out there. They had a bit of bite about them, didn't they? Yeah. They had a bit about them for this first 4 or 5 minutes at his I think it's going to be a 20-30 point to England. Claire,
do you share that view?
Maybe not a battering, but certainly if they go out with the same intent they did in the first 20 minutes, then I can see.
Ollie, Sydney Cricket Ground. It's a pretty special stadium. Do you think Australia can bounce back?
Shock, I think they can.
Hamish, you told me he was English now.
Who would have thought? No, I think today's probably been a good thing for Australia in the fact that they've really found out what they need to do in the next test and where they need to improve, and I think that's going to be pretty evident in the next game that they're going to front up more physically and make England question themselves a bit more.
Quick show of hands. Who do we think England are going to go on and win the series, or do we think Australia are going to come back? Okay, so we're going with England. Tell you what, if they do, it's a fair play to them. It's a tough place. But listen, we're going to move on now to talk about the other international games because any of you who got up early enough would have seen Ireland produce a magnificent performance today. So huge round of applause for Ireland in winning their first ever game on New Zealand soil. They obviously beat the All Blacks a little while ago. They got well beaten last week, but they really bounced back. Andy Farrell has this amazing record. Now, Kyran could have played rugby league. He could have played for Liverpool.
I was rubbish. It's just in there.
But he definitely could have played for Ireland. And there must have been a part. Did you get up and watch that game?
I watched that game. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, bearing in mind what happened in the last Test match, I thought Ireland struggled, and it was just one of those games. It was always going to be Ireland's game. I don't know whether you watched it, but there was a red card with the head-on-head collision. But there was another red card before that, and he got a yellow card. I don't know how that happened. Did you see that? Should have been a red card, but there was only one team in it for the whole time. And do you know what? I think it was like something like it was 10-7 at half time, and I thought, they've blown their opportunity, and they just kept the ball, scored another try. They just honestly.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question: Are Ireland and by nature France, because France were above Ireland in the Six Nations, are they significantly further ahead than England right now in international rugby?
I think definitely, based on the consistency and selection. Okay, they've had one-off games where they don't play very well.
Based on results.
Based on results, yeah. But someone told me that if Ireland won today by 15 and Wales beat South Africa, Ireland go to number 1 in the world. All right, so I was looking at the score and I was like, you never know. So listen, I think Ireland have done. Farrell's done amazing with that team, but. To be honest, if they miss 1 or 2 plays, if Sexton's not in there, they don't look the same side. So they've got to cover that, haven't they?
And Andrew Porter scored 2 tries today for the front row. It's a good thing, right? I mean, that guy is, by the way, a beast. He's an animal. I mean, he's a tight head who's just suddenly swapped and started playing loose head. He's going well.
We made the Champions Cup for this year, and I'm kind of happy Leinster on in our pool because. Scrumming against that boy, he looks like a beast. But anytime the prop gets over for a double, special times.
And, so listen, Ireland, magnificent. I mean, it'd be very interesting to see what happens in the final test. I'm not going to ask you for the predictions on that. We've obviously got Wales coming up, Claire, this afternoon, and Scotland. Wales heartbroken last week. There's a couple of Welsh supporters in here, actually, who were asking me do we think Wales can bounce back and make it 3 out of 3 this afternoon?
Well, let's hope so. I mean, that's the whole aim, and that's the great thing about these games is that you have that week to go back, look back at what's happened, and then go and prepare for the next game. So they'll be aiming to do that.
South Africa's team, though, they've literally dropped, 12, 13 players and But I think that's, and some of the players that are coming in are pretty good as well, though. So it's going to be great for South Africa, so for them preparing for the next for the World Cup. So it'll be interesting though, because that was an opportunity for Wales to win that game. I was supporting Wales. I know it's hard. I know it's hard for you, but I don't have that animosity. No. I was supporting them, and I thought, come on, you can do it.
I mean, Wales, South Africa, it's a flip of a coin for an Englishman, isn't it? I mean, it's a real tough one.
No. My wife is Welsh, so I'm very much up the dragon. Let's go.
Exactly.
So you're not talking about France and Japan. That looked like a close game, was it? Were you watching that at 6 o'clock?
No, I wasn't actually. I was
2015.
Yeah, no. The French obviously won comfortably in Japan last week in that first test. Much closer this time. Yeah. I mean, in fairness, in preparation for their World Cup next year, is it better to be touring somewhere like Japan, where you could give most of your senior players a bit of time off, and you can probably enjoy yourself, get a bit of team bonding, or would you reckon that playing and putting your frontline players up in the likes of Australia and New Zealand?
It depends where you are, though, in your cycle. At the moment, I think Ireland are pretty settled. Actually, Ireland probably could have done with going to Japan, but someone like Scotland need to regroup. I think it's been good for Wales. England need to sort of get their team sorted, and I think it's been good for England. But for France, to rest a few players is helpful for them. So it's horse for courses.
Right, well, listen, thank you. We look forward to and we will be cheering for Wales this afternoon, no doubt about it, and Scotland later on, and hopefully we can make a clean sweep.
Genuinely, we will be.
No, we will be, yeah, definitely.
Can you take a video of that, and we'll just post it? We'll just post it out.
Come on, Kieran, we love Wales. You know that, don't you? We love Wales.
I do. You obviously don't.
We only lost one. We only lost once, but I mean that's the only time.
Are they giving you a kicking over the years? Is that what it is?
No.
Sure.
No, I got gobbed on at Wembley. I wasn't very happy about that, to be fair. As I was walking off the pitch, but there we go. We dealt with that. Listen, we're going to leave and park international rugby there. We've had one of the most exciting Premiership seasons ever. This man was involved in it, London Irish, putting a pay to my beloved Wasps Champions Cup hopes of qualifying, but they were outstanding. One side of the ball, they just couldn't defend quite as much. On the other side of the ball, nearly made the playoffs. We know who did, and it was an incredible final between Saracens and Leicester, and obviously Leicester won in very dramatic circumstances with that Freddie Burns drop goal. What a final, Kieran. I mean, it was
Great final. Great fight. Well,
I mean, in terms of drama, I mean,
104 kicks though in the game. I mean, both teams box kicking in their 22. It was just ridiculous to watch. And the first 8 minutes literally was like watching Wimbledon. It was like kick. I was like, oh my God, we got both, because Borthwick's from Saracens taking that DNA. And then anyway, so it was frustrating to watch. Then a game almost broke out, didn't it? Almost. But to see Wigglesworth sort of like, he's not a great passer. How old is he? 48, 49. But he can kick a ball. I mean, he can kick a ball. And to be fair to that selection, Jack Van Portlick can't even get in the team, and here he is playing for England.
Third choice, by the way.
Third choice for Leicester, first choice for England now.
Ollie, you're a player who has played against both those sides, probably twice. I mean, was that a fair contest in the final? Were they the two best sides in the country on balance?
I think over the course of the season, probably. As Kieran said, it was a bit of a kick fest, and they both played pretty similar styles of rugby, very low risk. Pretty regimented styles of rugby, and I mean, if that wins you games, that's the way you're going to play, because you want to win trophies at the end of the year. You're not going to complain about your style when you're sitting with the Premiership Cup at the end of the year, are you? So, but I think over the course of the season, I think Leicester were first place from round one and they won the comp. So I mean, you can't really complain with the end result. Is it
a surprise that both teams broke the salary cap, end up in the final? I mean, is that should we discuss that?
Shock.
Sorry, Claire. We won't dwell on that. I mean, obviously, Saracens was a massive indiscretion. They paid the penalty. They've been relegated. They've come back, and there's a lot of Premiership fans that are quite pleased that Leicester actually won rather than Saracens. Maybe straight away, because whilst you forgive the players, sort of, who appear to have sort of worked out that nothing actually happened really, but you don't necessarily forgive the coaches. Claire, give us your impression. We'll talk about the Women's Premiership in a minute, but it was a dramatic finish, wasn't it? And I love the Freddie Burns story really, because here's a player. George Ford was obviously the player who was supposed to ride off into the sunset. He's joining Sale next season, and he's been magnificent. But Freddie Burns, not always loved by every club. He has been loved, but not always had the magic moments. And then went off to Japan, to find himself. If you follow him on Instagram, he certainly found himself in a few different places. I think he had a great time in Japan, that's for sure. And he came back, and I just think it's just a great story for him to come on, play very, very well in the game, set up the position, and then, score with the winning drop goal.
It's just that magic moment, and then obviously the rest of his Instagram was him walking down the road with the trophy for the next 3 days. So it's what dreams are made of, and obviously for a neutral like myself, watching that game also, it was just an exciting game, other than the tennis at the beginning. But that's what you want as well from a spectator position. It's like, who's going to get it? Who's going to win it? And magic moment for him as he drops the ball.
And I mean, we've obviously had the Andy Good, 4-day sort of in the kit celebration. We've had the Freddie Burns celebration.
Alex Good.
Oh, it's Alex Good. Sorry,
Andy Good does it all his life, right?
Andy Good did a lot of eating, I think. That's
No, do you know what was fascinating about this final? What I found fascinating is when we were all talking about the game before, I think everyone would agree that everyone thought Saracens were going to win because of the big game mentality, because of the players that they had. And it sort of reminded me, I'm a Liverpool supporter, it reminded me of Liverpool against Real Madrid. I thought, going to win this. Same as the final, had that sense, we're going to win this. But Leicester didn't have the stars, okay, but somehow they had the grit, the determination, the game plan to win, and it worked. But
they also had the most capped Premiership player of all time, probably the most decorated Premiership player of all time, and probably the oldest Premiership player of all time, and they had the bottle to pick him at scrum-half.
Unbelievable.
I've got to say, Steve Borthwick, who I played in the second row with when Simon Shaw got sent off after a minute against the All Blacks. We never really got on the field, Steve and I, until that moment where we found ourselves paired in the second row against the All Blacks for the best part of 80 minutes. But he has done an unbelievable transformation job at Leicester. Would you say England are a worse side without him or a better side without him, being Eddie Jones's England forwards coach?
So Richard Cockerell's in there now.
Well, I don't know. I'm not comparing him to Richard Cockerell. I just think that the standards that Steve Borthwick set.
Well, I personally think, for what it's worth, I think Borthwick will be England's next coach. That's my opinion. After this next World Cup, the silence in the room. Everyone's like, "Oh, really?"
Playing exciting ground.
I think Borthwick will be. What did you not think? I mean, who's it going to be then? Well,
I think he's got an opportunity to be part of the England setup.
He's got to be the main man.
Yeah, do you think so?
He's got to be the main man.
On the field. Maybe not in front of the camera, possibly. I think.
Don't have to be a good interviewer
to
win
believe it or not, PR. No, you don't. But PR is quite important because
he's shocking in front of the camera, isn't he? He's absolutely shocking.
We have no connection with the England team because we don't get to hear from any of them.
Clive loved the sound of his voice, didn't he? I know what you mean. But put someone else in front of the camera. Listen, I think he's done an amazing job. It's phenomenal, the transformation from where Leicester were. Look, they're champions, okay? A lot of that is down to him, and I know some of the recruitment. But, in my opinion, the next one, I mean, someone has shouted out Rob Baxter. Rob Baxter's had a great few years, the last year or so, not so good. So I think the man in place is going to be Borthwick.
I just wonder whether I think it's more than a one-man job.
Who do you think it's going to be?
I mean, well, if I look at New Zealand, when they were at their very best, they had Wayne Smith, Steve Hansen and Ian Foster. Right, and that is, I mean, that as a rugby brains trust it's almost like having three head coaches.
We should get Borthwick, Farrell, Sean Edwards.
I mean, it's going to cost. It's going to cost.
It's expensive.
It's going to cost you. It's expensive, but I mean,
I'd do it. Would you do it?
Can
you imagine?
That's
why France are doing so well.
The problem is they're going to have to go and get Sean Edwards pretty quickly because they're not stupid. The French. They probably waived a 4-year contract under his nose. Andy Farrell, I would imagine, is very comfortable with life in Dublin, as is his family. It's not just about the player, is it, and the person. It's happy wife, happy life. Generally, I think she much prefers Dublin. Anyway, listen, we'll get on to that. I was diverging. Let's talk about the Premiership. You're back in Premiership training already. Can you believe that? 5 weeks off, apparently, London Irish have. And because they had a bye weekend, that included one of their weeks off, which I think is a bit harsh. A bye weekend was their last weekend off. Did you manage to switch off from rugby? Because you look like a man who might struggle to do that.
Yeah, I did. I managed to go back to Australia for a bit. I hadn't seen my family for 4 years, which was a long slog. So I went back, met my niece for the first time. It was really nice. And then me and the wifey went to Corfu in Greece. We got married during COVID, so we didn't get to do a honeymoon.
Oh, congratulations.
We got married in front of 14 people at a registry office, all with masks on. It was lovely.
Nice and cheap.
Save quid to get married. It was a great shot. I'm very happy. Sorry, Mum. Sorry, Dad. We're doing drink over, but
it'll cost you a lot more. Trust me.
I can imagine that. But no, I got some time off. Yeah, we've been back for a week and a half now, and we earned the weekend yesterday. Got absolutely flogged in the heat.
Are you a? I mean, I'm a silly question really, but props generally hated pre-season. But I mean, I suppose the modern day rugby player.
And he's a bit of a looker. Look at him. But he's not been damaged. You're obviously not putting your face where it counts. Really.
I try my best.
You try your best.
Yeah.
Are you? I mean, you just got to buy into it, really. It's
one of those things. It's just you grit your teeth and get through the next 8 weeks, and then you got a long season ahead of you where you can kind of manage yourself.
And do they do anything irregular, like sand dune racing or something? Something horrific. We got to carry each other. To
be fair, it's very analytically driven now, and we've got sports scientists in the club, and they manage load. I think it's a bit different to when maybe you guys are playing, where you just flog a dead horse. I think Eddie Jones probably adopts that thing, but. We're quite lucky. We're in Monday to Friday, and it's like one tough day and then one off feet day, and one tough day, one off feet day, and they kind of manage our load a bit.
Oh, we didn't do anything like that, did we? Jesus Christ.
Claire, how's what's your view on pre-season? I mean, you're glad those days are over, I would imagine.
Hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it with an absolute passion, and I would try and avoid it most times. Luckily for me, when I was with England and stuff, we'd actually have summer tours anyway, so I was given a little bit of leeway, like, well, you've just been on tour, so you need to rest. So yeah, I took that with open hands. Yeah.
Mind me, Buck Shelford, he coaching Saracens way back 18 years ago, or whatever, and he goes, right, I'll see you tomorrow at 5. And we're like, okay, brilliant, that's a late start. Now, mate, 5 in the morning. What are we doing? Fartlegging at 5 in the morning for 2 hours before training.
Yeah, things have changed.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of, they give them a little heart rate test. Oh, you're feeling a bit poorly. Yeah, you better sit out of training today.
We put our wellness scores in every morning, and they monitor that and stuff. So cold a little bit more.
Your urine's looking a little bit the wrong colour. Did you?
They do. That's what they do. They do urine
I think you should sit out of training. Well, if they did that to us, there'd be no one training. Trust me.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's one of those things where they give you the option to sit out, but if you do, you never get picked again, so you just do it anyway. So.
And listen, we're obviously, quite honestly, we did have the best 2 teams in the final. I genuinely mean that. There's no hard feeling, even though I played for Wasps for 20 years. Clearly, I'm actually a massive admirer of both clubs. I love sporting rivalries, and for many years, it was Bath were the main team in the Premiership. Then it became Leicester. Wasps had a little purple patch. Then Saracens. Then Exeter. And now it's kind of wide open. I mean, do you see it that way? Do you discuss openly and say, guys, if we'd have won just a few more of those home games and been able to close them out, we could have been in the mix?
Definitely. I mean, as an Irish player, we were in the mix for a while there. I think we were actually 4th at one stage, and then it's maybe a bit of an unknown territory for us. I've done a couple of years in the Championship since I've been here. It's been a kind of a steep learning curve since I've come to the UK. And maybe there was probably a period in the middle of the season where we played Leicester away, we played Northampton at home and Quins at home, and we were 4th in the league going into those 3 games, and we kind of bottled it a bit to be quite frank. We were up at Welford Road, and then we got a red card, and that game sort of capitulated, and then we never really recovered from that. And the 2 games following that, we got blown off the park, and we got 0 points out of those 3 games. And that kind of took us from 4th. The season was so close. You could see from 9th to 2nd was like 10 points maybe, and we went 3 games and got 0 points and went all the way down to 8th. And then we're trying to claw our way back.
And just have a little. I mean, I don't know if any of you have been over to the what do we call it? The Brentford Community Stadium.
That's the one.
Okay, we're allowed to call it. Okay,
best stadium in the league.
I'm on brand. That is a fantastic experience over there. And whatever happens, you always think the Irish have won because everyone just seems to have a great time over there.
It's great. It is good.
Claire, we'll talk a little bit about the women's 15s as well. I mean, obviously, the men's game is moving forward. There's been huge investment in the women's game as well. Did we have new champions this year, or was it Saracens again?
No, Saracens.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Exeter have come through pretty strongly.
Yeah, they did. And this week they've just announced, the RFU have just announced a 10-year plan for the Women's Premiership. So they're looking to obviously move all players now to become professionals. With the Exeter and Saracens, it was a good result. Again, Saracens were expected to win, and they did, and they won comfortably. And then when you look back in the leagues, what you're seeing now, and for the women's game, and this will be interesting what happens in the next 10 years, we obviously get an influx of international players, which is fantastic for the game. The English Premiership is world renowned. It's one of the best in the world. But what we've got to look for now for the next 10 years is how does the international influx affect what's going to happen to England and the other home nations. So if all the Welsh players are playing in our league, what's happening to their league and so on. But in terms of the Premiership, probably no surprises. Marley Packer, unbelievable in the final. Yeah. But Exeter, again, fantastic result for them to get up there. And in the last 3 years, the changes from it being, whilst you say, Purple Patches or Saracens, Bristol and the likes, it does fluctuate.
And if you had one wish for the women's game, I mean, obviously, hopefully the Red Roses will win the World Cup. That'll give us a big boost. I think if I was a brand, I'd be putting a lot of money into women's rugby. If I was an England sponsor, I think you get more out of the England team by sponsoring the women than you do the men at the moment, quite honestly. Controversial, but fact. The only guy we hear from in England is the coach. I want to hear from some of the players because there's some personalities there that we need to connect.
What are you bowling at the moment?
I don't know. Underarm. I'll get excited.
I feel like we're bowling.
I'm getting excited. If there was one wish for the women's game, what would it be? That we get that investment, that we start to see some of those superstars coming through.
I think so, but I think maybe speed things up a little bit. We're seeing Maggie on TV today. We see Skaz all the time. We see Mo, but again, just the speed up a little bit. We've a 10-year plan. It sounds so far away, but hopefully we'll see things coming through in the next couple of years.
Brilliant, fantastic. Any predictions? So we've got prediction for England to win. We got prediction for Ireland to win. Do we think Ireland are going to win next week? 50-50. Come on, Ireland. Should we talk about Wales? Do we think Wales are going to win today? No. Do we care?
You obviously don't.
I do care. I do care.
That's a pretty tough emotional barrier for Wales to get over from last week. I mean, they probably put everything into that and probably deserve to win, and trying to pick yourself up off the floor and come back against a fresh South African team who are probably chomping at the bit. All those boys given an opportunity. I think it's going to be a tough one for Wales, but I'll root for them. Good on them.
You're not really mentioned Scotland. I see Scotland written down there.
No, they are written down.
I know, exactly. Just ignoring that.
Well, I'm not ignoring them.
Series, just whatever. Any Scots in the room, by the way?
Yeah.
There we go.
Listen, they're on a development tour to Argentina, and they're obviously I saw Gregor Townsend before he went away, and he was very realistic about what their chances are. Yeah. He's left out some of his best players, particularly at 10, so they've got some. They've got some challenges, and anyone who's been to Argentina knows it's a tough place to play. Those guys are hard boys. As we found out over the years, we never had an easy game against the Argentina. No. So, listen, we wish them all well. Hopefully, it'll be a Northern Hemisphere clean sweep. Thank you very much for joining us for our podcast. My thanks to Kyran Bracken. By the way, both his sons are playing at England age group level. I mean, only one. Well, we're still working on the other one, but clearly even more talented than their super talented father. My thanks to Claire for everything that she's contributed today. Thank you very much. And we wish the Red Roses all the very biggest success. And to Ollie in pre-season, thanks for joining us, mate. Don't be thinking about going back to Australia. And good luck to London Irish. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. Cheers now.